Welcome back to the show, everybody. We are live every Wednesday at this time. And by the way, I say this time is because it's always somewhere between like 8 and 8:04. I don't know. It's supposed to be 8:01, but I struggle to keep it that sometimes. So welcome, everybody. As we've got a few people already in the wings there, we're getting ready to watch. We've got a return guest, Richard Estep. He's prolific writer on everything from serial killers to the paranormal, haunted locations. He's been on several shows. He said if you watch those, you're going to be able to see him there. We'll talk about that a little bit too. But we're going to be talking about grifters, frauds, and crooks, true stories of American corruption. And as the author so eloquently put it, and I absolutely love it, it is a compiled list of America's douchebags. So I really love that description, because it is, especially when we get to the preacher section. Yeah, that one really, those guys hold a special place in my heart. Yeah, Copeland, man. Yeah, he's a really nice guy. So yeah, we're going to be talking about that. So, but definitely to sit back. Thanks again for Richard coming back on the show. Invisible Ink Press is the publisher, and like I said, have a really good relationship with both him and some of the authors, including Richard, so it was great having him back on. So let's get right to it. So we will talk to him right here, and got questions. You guys got your favorite grifter, fraud, or crook from American history? Definitely send those comments out there. We'll get those things on, and that will be right now. Welcome to the Three Beards podcast. My name is Craig, along with Austin and Chris.
Passed to a new generation of Americans born in this century.
Let me out.
I'm afraid that is right.
Justice and honor in Massachusetts colony?
All right. Yeah, and he's back. Sir Brian M. Bowden, Templar Knight.
Yeah, Knights Templar.
Free Mason plant on the Three Beards podcast. To ensure that we stay within the bounds of the Masonic, world order.
You'll a podcast and like it.
Yeah, that's right. I just bumped my camera. Apologize that for me. And guess what? We're brought to you by Ert Radio, courtesy Ron Tolvar. Go to radio on Mixler.com and set up your account there, so that way you can listen to this show, which is rebroadcast every Wednesday at 11 o'clock p.m. Or you can go to, listen to other programs like Into the Outer Realms, Dimensions of the Supernatural. Ron's got his daily, I'm just going somewhere and I turn the camera on, and you can listen to him and follow him on Facebook and just watch him, attempt to run over a pedestrian or two. It can be entertaining, when he almost gets in a car accident, when somebody turns the wrong way. It's pretty interesting. So you can follow him on Facebook and YouTube, watch that. Or if you just want to listen to the frivolity, you can just do that too, which is great. But Mixler.com, that's ERRT Radio, Ert Radio, proud sponsor. All right. That's enough of that. Let's bring on the guest here.
Swap me.
I will. Hey, don't worry. It's weird. They renamed everything. Now it says add to stage. It's not,
It's all right.
It's great. Yeah, they change things up to make themselves all fancy.
As long as
Richard, welcome back to the show, man.
Gentlemen, thank you for having me back.
Grifter, Fraud Crooks, as he described, it is a nice bathroom book, which is awesome. And that's I was going to say, here's one of the other books that we have that I've got from him, Serial Killers. We're going to not do a whole thing of show and tell. I've got several of them in here, but we'll go with that. So that's the one I could grab real handy off the library behind me. So this one definitely really nice compilation of a bunch of stories. I mean, like some of the ones, like it was kind of weird. I didn't really know until probably about, I think maybe a year and a half ago. And your book also talks about it too, because everybody's heard the term like Ponzi scheme. Mm-hmm. And I don't think a lot of people actually realized that it was based off of, a guy's name was actual Charles Ponzi. Yep. And that's one of the things that's in the book. And like I'll show right there, part of the Ponzi scheme. And that's there's a lot of those things too, where like you described, like the bathroom book, this one, when you're in there, you can read a short story or two and then, close it, set it on the lending library. Everybody needs to get that little corner bookshelf, just set it right in.
Is that Mr. Madoff on the back cover?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, I lost money to that asshole.
I think a lot of people, honestly, did.
No, inadvertently, it was through a hedge fund. Trust me, I was in finance, and actually one of the classes we had was Booms, Busts, Scams, and Scandals, and our final project was developing one of these grifter scams, and it was so complex. The teacher, who was like, holy crap, 8, triple plus, and it was really good, actually. I think they stole it and used it, but inadvertently, a lot of people got screwed on murder.
And I'll get both your takes, but Richard, like this one, between those two, who do you? I hate to say, amazing, like just the brilliance of pulling it off. Mm-hmm. Who do you think was the better, or I say like, I hate to say better. I'll just get it out. Enron or Madoff? Who was the more like impressive pulling off of a scam?
I think that Madoff was kind of the one-man band, right? So he was the sole proprietor, the sole architect. Enron became this kind of collective delusion where they set their entire corporate culture up based upon this idea. And so the guys at the top got the buy-in from those below them, and so on and so forth. So I think I don't want to make the comparison too easy because it's kind of apples to oranges,
Yeah, that's
Madoff.
Not easy.
Yeah, Madoff was more the think on your feet kind of guy, I think. Enron was more a case of, well, they had multiple people involved in running this scam.
The layers of Enron, they still can't figure out. That's why it was the best. But what Madoff had was, people just started buying into it because he was giving close to 16.5%, 17.5% quarterly.
Yeah.
And people were getting it. If you give enough money back to people, the problem is when everybody started to, try to cash out, he had no funds to do it. That's where he got caught.
I think that
Nikola Tesla, yes, the Enron effect. There is a chapter on Enron. That's it.
The smartest schemes, though, of course, are the ones that never get caught, right? I think Ponzi schemes are baked in. They have their expiration date baked into them. It is impossible to keep them going for a truly prolonged amount of time. They are not self-sustaining. Sooner or later, the people at the bottom of the pyramid figure it out, right? And then if they're fortunate, the personal people at the top may escape with their ill-gotten gains. It depends. One has to admire the intricacy and the simplicity. It's weird. It's paradoxical. They're both incredibly intricate and yet incredibly simple. And they're all predicated on this premise that we all know if something seems too good to be true, it usually is, right? But when you're seeing 16, 17, 18% returns coming into your portfolio, it's a whole lot easier to be, I want this. Let me put more money in, We are all predisposed to want to benefit in that way. People weren't asking the hard questions until they were.
No, if I'm not mistaken, didn't he handwrite like a lot of ledgers? Like a lot of transactions, he was keeping everything just like on handwritten notes.
there was a massive paper trail, and it was so convoluted. The auditors that had to go through all of that, I can only imagine the patience and frustration that must have wrought upon them.
He was doing it correctly for a while, and then after a while, the problem with Madoff was it got so out of hand so quickly. There was no way to return. There's no way. And he said, you know what? I'm going to get screwed anyhow. And I think he just let it roll. And then he started pulling out, and then big people got caught in that. Big people.
And there comes a point, I would say, where you know you have a tiger by the tail and you just can't let it go. This is true with a lot of these schemes where, you know, they're wildly successful, as you pointed out, sometimes beyond the dreams of the person that started them. But the minute you let go, you're done. So what choice do you have but to hang on and kick the can a little further down the road?
Yeah. Do you think if 2000, that 2006 to 2008 episode, if that hadn't happened, do you think he would have still made it a little while longer?
I think a little
not been
while.
Caught up?
You make a good point, but a little while longer. But again, you can only kick that can so far down the road, right? Somebody always starts asking questions. The money always starts running out. Sooner or later, there is a fly in the ointment. It's just a question of how long do you get away with it. And to me, the more interesting question, looking at some of these people, is how did they sleep at night? You know, I mean, and I'm not just talking about conscience or lack thereof. I'm talking about knowing that your days are numbered. You aren't going to get out of this, right? There's no way, unless you completely disappear and fake your own death, the likelihood of you getting away with it is minuscule. So how do you live like that? Always looking over your shoulder, thinking, is today the day? Is that knock at the door, the one you've been dreading? And
that's the SEC, that's that's the Fed showing up. Yeah.
And one thing that struck me is, as you showed earlier, I've written several books on serial killers. It's the same kind of tension that murderers live under, constantly wondering, is today the day I get found out in court? Is today the day it all comes crashing down?
And the thing with the finance game is everybody on Wall Street, the old motto of "we're too big to fail" has always been there, and it's been shored up.
Yeah. So was the Titanic, though, right?
Right. Well, we know about that, but the banking failure, the insurance failure, I think he may have been hoping for some kind of bailout, and like, I'll work with you, but give me a break and light sentence and whatever. But people were pissed. Yeah. Because mom and pops got nailed on this one.
Right. Nobody likes to be taken, and they're far less likely to work with you if you have embarrassed them, especially en masse, which by definition is what happens with a con game like this.
And then, Ron, he asked about Amway. Is that right? And I'm like, Amway falls under like the Charles Ponzi type thing. They went into that multi-level marketing thing where it's just that's kind of the way you did it. That's almost like, I guess that's a really good way of summing up the corrupt side of U.S. economy. Where you have this crony capitalism, you have these things. Amway is one of those where if I can get you and Brian to buy something from me, and then you guys go get 30 people to buy under you, and I'm the one making all the money while you guys are the ones doing all the work.
But of course, that's how capitalism works, right? We've all worked for corporations. We've all been that person at the bottom. One thing that struck me about this was I just finished last month a book on Second World War history for Visible Ink Press, turned that in. And looking at Stalin, and Stalin famously said, one death is a tragedy, a million deaths are a statistic. I feel like the same is true with fraud. If you steal $500 or even $50, you're probably going to spend some time in jail, right? If you steal billions, you may not spend any jail time at all. It depends. There's a point where the fraud becomes so big and so dispersed, it's institutionalized, and you may never be held accountable.
Yep.
Yeah, I think a lot of times you're not, just because of it falls right in there with the corruption things. Because a lot of people, regardless of your politics side, everybody's like, we want to see Trump go to jail, we want to see Hillary go to jail. It's not going to happen, because once that happens, it's free for all on all politicians.
Yeah,
They-
I doubt it will happen.
because there's so many connections. Because a lot of people they say, "Well, this thing," I'm like, you don't understand. Companies like Amway, pharmaceutical companies, all this stuff, they're throwing money in the pockets of everybody. I go, nobody's going to do really anything, because why are you going to cut off the hand that feeds you?
We are starting to see a little bit of big pharma being held accountable to a degree,
Yes.
but still nobody's really doing anything about it. And I don't want to go too much into politics because it's a great way to kill. We've all got our own opinions, right? But one thing I will say is this. For this book, I did study the left, I studied the right, and I studied the mafia. And I know which of the three I would rather was running the country. I know which of the three was most efficient, and I know which of the three had at least some kind of code that you could understand and work with.
And I'll say it, it's the mafia. I mean, that one actually has, which sounds terrible. But it is. It's like they actually had. It's really weird to say like the mafia has the best moral compass out of the three.
It's business.
They're the most competent out of the three, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems weird. People like moral compass, they kill these people. Yeah, I mean, so does everybody else. But at least like this one, it's just like you wrong the family. Mickey Two-Tone just got taken out. Back out there in the cornfield. I mean, it's really weird the way they do that. And I was just with a lot of these things too. It's like people. This isn't a modern iteration of anything. I mean, this goes back to the robber barons.
Oh, this goes far.
Yeah, I mean, this is.
When I wrote this book, it was a delight to do. Honestly, which sounds awful, right? But it was a delight to go through U.S. history and pick out these fraudsters and some of these great cons and swindles and some of these terrible things as well, right? I don't mean to say I advocate for this stuff. I could do the same for British history. You can go all the way back, and books have been written on corruption and grift in ancient Rome. As long as we've had institutionalized systems, organizations, collectives like this, you've had fraud, you've had grift, you've had corruption. Those of a religious bent would point out Judas Iscariot and 30 pieces of silver, but you can go way back further than that if you are so inclined.
Yeah, I think it just, because a lot of people, I mean, it's hard. It's hard to, I was thinking about how to organize this. It's like, for me, I think I'm just going to jump around, because there's so many different things. I mean, people don't realize, like, it's in every facet of everything, whether it's sports, whether it's politics, whether it's religion, whether it's just everything. Yeah. It usually boils down to somebody has an obsession with money. They've got to, that's their main driving force. It doesn't matter if they're trying to convince you to watch the baseball game or if they're trying to get you to put money in the plate on Sunday morning. They're all tied to that. Like you said, there's the grift. How am I going to get the money? So that way I can buy the next thing. I want to get the next boat. I want to get this is why the Lord has given us this private airplane, is because that's the only way that we're able to commune with God when we're flying, to all these meetings. Well, you can clearly see, no, this is boiling down to, you want the elite feel with the money.
Well, and what's interesting is that there is a certain point at which the amount of money becomes meaningless to you as an individual. What I mean by that is, as you can see behind me, one of my big vices in life is books. I have a book shopping problem, hands down. The main reason I became a writer was so that I could lie to myself and justify every book I buy as research for a future project, potentially,
I like that.
But, and so honestly, if I were financially independent, I would just pick as many books as I wanted and never look at the price tag, right? That's my definition of rich. Then we get to the kind of Jeff Bezos level where you are orders of magnitude above that. I still know how much I've got in the bank. I still know how much I could pull out tomorrow if I needed it, right? But when you literally have multiple islands, multiple jet planes, it becomes meaningless to you. I think when you start measuring wealth in the billions, or even the millions to a degree, your needs are far in excess of being met. And then how do you walk by somebody that's obviously in need? And just the disparity is beyond me. At what point does the level of money that you're grifting and have accumulated become meaningless to you? You know, what is that figure? 1 million, 5, 10, 50? What? Where is that number set?
Well, I mean, Brian can speak to this because he was in finance. But that's one of the things, like, it's just basic economics. It's the economics of scale. In the beginning, when you're dealing with pennies, it takes forever to save. But when you get to the point of, like, where you've Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, it's like Brewster's Millions. You can't give it away fast enough. It's adding so quick, you can't give it away enough.
Except you can, can't you? Because you can then set up your own institution that whose entire job of which is to give that money away in the most efficient benefit.
Because but Bezos, he got divorced, and I think it was like later that year, he replaced everything that he had given, in the settlement with McKinsey.
Yeah.
And it's that's why it literally is just begetting, billions are begetting more billions. I mean, it's like you can't, it's like even through a divorce, you can't give it away fast enough. It's like it just keeps adding.
So one of the things that in finance, when I first started doing it, I knew one of the guys that was responsible for the conversion of individual currency to the euro. And we were hanging out, we're talking, he goes, this was literally hours before it was supposed to go live, where the euro was going to be live and all the other currencies are converting over. He goes, there are going to be people right now on fraction shares of pennies that are going to be made billionaires in about 3 hours, because you're not looking for the fractional piece, right? But some people are. And I mean, he was explaining to me how it was going to happen, because things were going to tail off. They're going to round numbers. And then what do you do with the extra money? And it was insane. It was like the greatest grift, scam, whatever. And people made a ton of money on that.
Yeah. And
if you get the opportunity, I'm not a goody two shoes, but if you had the opportunity where you're in the process, like, well, I mean, I get to keep the spare change. Like, remember when you were a little kid, your father gave you something or whatever, go to the store, keep the change. That's what it's like with these people. But this change is billions of dollars.
It was like Office Space. You got made that program to round up just the fraction of a thing. And they're like, oh yeah, they're never going to notice. And they come back the next day and they've already got like $1 million in the account.
Prior to the Superman 3, right, with Richard Pryor. That's the whole.
Yeah.
And of course, Richard Pryor gets caught in that movie because he buys a Ferrari or whatever the sports car is and drives it into the corporate parking lot, the company he's embezzling from. So he doesn't have the discipline to fly under the radar with his ill-gotten gains.
That happens. I mean, you get to a certain, I don't know if it's like a God mentality. You Richard, you mentioned it pretty much in relationship to serial killers' attitude. You get bored. It's addiction. So you make a bigger bet. And then you get bored, and you need that. It's like drugs. I need another high, but I need a bigger high.
And if you're an empire builder, like, how do you validate your own self-worth? We all have our own ways of validating our self-worth, right? Professionally, I make my living not as a writer, but as a paramedic. So helping people is the great joy and fulfillment of my professional life. If you're sitting at the top of a corporate tower, wearing a suit that costs more than my house, what validates your self-worth? Is it so many percentage points gross profit? Is it dividends to shareholders? Because ultimately all that stuff is meaningless. Or you could make the choice to say, you know what, I'm going to build X number of schools. I'm going to fund X number of research fellowships, scholarships, whatever it is. So I think everybody at every level has the opportunity, if they want, to do something meaningful. Some just don't, and they just keep accumulating more because they don't know any other way to feel good about themselves.
Yeah, there was a guy on Wall Street a bunch of years ago. He literally started his own country. He started his own currency. I shit you not. He started issuing bonds, and the broker dealers on Wall Street started buying them. And then they got found out. Does anybody do research anymore? Like, Gunga is not a country, Yeah.
I mean, I think, it's that simple thing. It's just like with Madoff, like what Richard, like what you said earlier, is that how many people would be willing to raise a red flag that this doesn't make any sense that I'm making 18% returns on my investments?
Yeah,
Does
it's
not
the
seem
emperor.
like a no. Yeah.
The emperor has no clothes, right? But of course, in that story, it required a child with the complete lack of self-interest and guile that children have. For the most part, it took a child to point out the emperor has no clothes. Adults didn't do it. And adults indeed assured the emperor that, yeah, everything was great and he looked fantastic.
Because like Brian, you would have to, because your license is on the line. Like I said, these are the type of it's like you have to do your due diligence. But like the average person, they're like, "What do you mean? I'm making 18 cents on the dollar? Hell yeah!" I'm like, they're like, "Here, have more." It's like that's.
I was heavily involved. I was seeing the returns because my father was in it, my aunt was in it, my great aunt was in it. I mean, and my great aunt is loaded. She was beyond wealthy, like insane, like wealth, not rich, wealthy type of thing. And the next door neighbor had a hedge fund, and hedge funds are great. It's a great way to launder money and make a lot of money or lose it. And they were getting it and they were seeing it in return, and they weren't very busy about going to go pull it out because, just roll it over. We'll invest more. And I'm looking at these returns. I'm 16.78. I'm like, you're out of your mind. This is quarterly.
This is not sustainable.
It's not possible. There's nothing. The highest percentage you would ever get at one point, if you tax like one of the like the NASDAQ or whatever, the Dow Jones, maybe you could beat it, maybe 20% max, but that's max a year, and that's like a unicorn. There's no way, the banks.
Yeah, and you know this better than anyone. The way to beat the market is really, correct me if I'm wrong, and please do correct me because we're talking about my retirement now, but is to invest in basically a diverse, solid index fund, a mutual fund, and let time do the work.
100%. Another solution, and I'm not a licensed, financial analyst or anything, but what I've always advised people, even having these diverse portfolios, enough debt to equity ratio, whatever, real estate, foreign holdings, physical gold and silver. That will never lose value. It's a pain in the ass to hold it. Don't buy the certificates.
Yeah, don't buy paper.
Get the 1 ounce coins if you can. And if I always say silver more so than gold, because one, you can get a boatload more from the silver. It's like if it's $19 dollars an ounce versus 2,000, go do the math. How much you're going to get, right? You're going to get almost close to 1,000 ounces or whatever it is. But on top of that, there's more use for silver in the long run through all the technology than there is for gold. So
I love that we bored Craig so much he's now reading my book.
Oh no, I'm preparing for. I was trying to think of my question. Like I said, I like showing the book because then it's like it's one of those things. Because usually I'm writing notes or doing something.
And in the book, because I don't have the book and I have not read the book, and I apologize to you because I just don't have it. But is there someone who you, in many ways, I mean, if I hate to use the term respect, but someone you were like, wow, I wish I thought of that.
No, because everybody in the book got caught.
Eventually, but if even when people get caught, I listen to what they've done, and I'm like, oh my God, that's so. It's most of the stuff that works great is something that's very simple.
That's true, and you've got to have that degree of simplicity for it to work, right? But there was, and I'm flicking through the book now myself. I wrote this, bear in mind, more than a year ago, and no, honestly, there really wasn't. The closest I would come to someone I have respect for is General David Petraeus, who had a renowned, laudable career serving his country in the military, and then made some very poor choices that tarnished it. So
yeah.
Oh yes.
That's kind of the closest. But sticking with the military-industrial complex side of things, I also have in there people that committed acts of treason, that betrayed their country. It gets a little more complex as well when we look at the kind of nuclear espionage side of things, and the fact that there are people that committed treason because they believed that ethically it was the right thing to do. The Rosenbergs spring to mind here. The Rosenbergs taking U.S. nuclear secrets and passing them off to foreign powers, that's treason. Yep. They died for it. However, they did not do it for the money. And so I debated even putting them in the book. And there are a couple of people in here that I debated putting in the book. And I ended up doing it because the stories were so interesting, you know. But I would say that in that it's very different when you are doing something not for personal gain, but because you ethically believe it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, it was really weird, like the Rosenbergs, because there was, like you said, there was no monetary gain from this. They basically did it because they believed that the other side was morally superior to what the U.S. was doing, and they wanted to make sure that the stuff got out.
I don't know that they believed the other side was morally superior so much as they thought that they wanted a level playing field.
Yep.
Yeah,
that would therefore diminish the likelihood of a catastrophic, you know, Armageddon type war. But I definitely would single those guys out because, again, anybody in the book who did what they did because of their own version of morality, I don't have to agree with your morality to recognize that it works for you. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And if you're acting according to a moral code as opposed to self-gratification, I find it easier to understand you and sympathize with you, even though I think you should still have been tried and punished for your actions.
Yeah, one that I think is going to be showing up in, you know, whenever you're going to have to do a revised edition down the road.
Sure.
But pretty sure there's going to be a little corporation that's that's referring to a stone that's of a darker color, like black rock. That's going to end up being in this book at some point.
I think the big challenge in doing this book was what to leave out.
Yeah.
You know, I won't say the book wrote itself because you still have to research and all that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of joy in looking at some of those primary sources. But yeah, you know, I could write a second book in this series tomorrow. There's enough material to write 10 more easily.
Yeah.
There's probably an encyclopedia to write for Black Rock, State Street, and what I forgot the other one. The three holders of basically everything of the world.
Well, you know, all joking aside, like, you know, Richard busted on me for looking. That's the cool thing about the book is, like, whenever in a discussion, you can flip through here and then you can reference like exactly what you're talking about. And that's what, you know, like I said, that's what's cool. It's like, so when I'm doing it, I was getting ready to ask a question. So you go to the index and he's got them all right there. So you can look in here to make sure that you're, you know, get right to the point and, you know, show them. And that's the part, that's one of the things, like I said, I really like the way this style of books laid out, especially like for the research side. It makes it to where easy.
Yeah. Richard, in the book, did you discuss the Dutch tulip escapade?
I did not.
But did you research that at all, or no?
No, actually, no. The chat when I structure a book like this, I look at my broad categories. You know, so I know I'm going to have to put in religion and politics because those are the two things we never talk about at the dinner table, right? Especially Thanksgiving. I know that I'm going to have to put in sport. I know that I'm going to have to put in on the military-industrial complex, SBI. So I start with those headings, and then I start looking at some of the most fascinating. And one thing you'll see me do as well, for example, sports is not my forte, very much not. I will go on social media, and I'll hit up my friends and readers, and I'll be like, guys, what is the most compelling sporting scandal in U.S. history? I've no shame at all in putting that out to the hive mind and getting their answers. Some of them I've never heard of, you know, and then some of them are so obvious, I can't believe I didn't think of them up front. And then I would kind of go down those rabbit holes. Some of them I just don't think make as compelling a story, and I would reject. Others I'm like, maybe that's for a future volume, you know?
Oh, yeah, you probably have a collection, and then we'll put that aside when I'm...
And Brian, I wanted to span time as well. So, you know, I mean, when you talk about politics, for example, we tend to look at Abraham Lincoln and we tend to look at the administration of George Washington. You know, the stuff that was scandalous in their day wouldn't make us bat an eyelid today. Absolutely wouldn't make us bat an eyelid. So I'd wanted to layer this stuff. I'd wanted to go back to the birth of the Republic and then come all the way forward to the 21st century and provide a cross section, you know, of some of those. Teapot Dome scandal made it in, for example, things of that nature made it in.
When I say the Dutch tulip, it's not necessarily political as much as it's the tulip itself. And at one point, those things were being traded exorbitant amount of money.
Yeah.
And people were going crazy for them until one guy took it and bit it. He thought he was an apple. And then everything went. It's like, this is like what part of those crazy schemes, like I'm going to use Cabbage Patch Kids. I don't know how long or Pet Rocks or Furby.
Hey, I went to the Cabbage Patch Factory and watched one of those dolls get born when I was in Atlanta.
Oh my God. But my whole point is we get this craze becomes a market itself, but how much of is that a scheme versus?
Well, I get you. I mean, honestly, I attribute, and I've fallen for this myself in the past. I attribute, I wouldn't call that fraud or even grift. I would just say that is a triumph of marketing, right? Marketing is something that we are all, no matter how much we try and resist it, we are all prone to some degree or another. They sell us the idea that you must have this, and if you don't have this, your life is incomplete. With a lot of those, the Pet Rocks, the Cabbage Patch Kids, whatever the cool toy is, right? They target deliberately to children, knowing that is the Achilles heel of the parent, who are made to feel like they're an inadequate parent if they don't stand in line for 8 hours and beat the crap out of somebody to get the last toy for their kid on Christmas morning.
Rest of us.
And as we all know, when we got those toys on Christmas morning, no matter what they were, often by March, we'd forgotten why we wanted them in the first place. And we're on to the next cool thing. That's human nature. I don't think that's necessarily grift. It just shows how dumb we can be as a species.
I look at, and you're right, it's 100% marketing. I mean, you could, if you put enough PR behind Quasimodo, he'd be on the cover of like GQ, the Man of the Year. Like this, or the Elephant Man would be on the cover of GQ because you could
actually. What you would do then is you would create this idea that hunchbacks or whatever you want to choose. You could with sufficient resources and manipulation convince the public that cutting off your own nose was the big move of the sea. Whatever you want to do, whatever you want to do. So I so love when the Pet Rocks first came out. I remember that I was, little. I'm like, this is freaking genius. Some guy said, why not? Yeah.
Write a name on it and just print up a box, and people ate it up. Why can't I go out and just pick up a rock? No.
Right. But for every one, there are 10,000 that many of which seem like more original ideas that just fizzled and died. The fascination is, why do some take off when the majority don't? Why do some of them ride the zeitgeist? Why do some of them ignite and burn through the sky like a shooting star, and others just fizzle and die? That's of more interest to me.
And did you also include in the book like some of the like the JP Morgans and I mean,
the robber barons.
Yeah, they I mean, there's a movie called Thrive, I think it is, from the I think it's Johnson and Johnson's family, and they're in the trusts, right? So they're getting millions and millions a year. But this guy literally went against the trust and that whole community because his wife had cancer and he couldn't figure out why they couldn't cure. And then he went down this whole rabbit hole of what's going on with pharmaceutical companies and whatever. But it's just like he went up right to like, my family got rich by stealing from everybody.
The name of that, that lady. While you're talking about it, just made me think. She was the one in California. It was far in the medical community. It was pretty much the quintessential, grift. She said that she came up with a process. It was Blood something was the name of their corporation. And it was fairly recently, and so she basically scammed all the investors and everything. What she said she could do, it was Madoff, Enron. It was all rolled into one. She was basically just this complete. Everything was made up, and it was pretty amazing. All the people that were throwing money into something that didn't even exist.
Well, initially it's the scammer, right?
Theranos, is that it?
Which one?
Theranos. Which is in the last chapter of the book. because I covered that, and I cover Martin Shkreli, the Pharma bro, a little bit. Medicine is huge. I mean, again, you could write an entire book on
Yes,
any
it was Theranos. It was Theranos. Yeah, the Elizabeth Holmes was a founder. Yep.
Yeah, and as someone who works in the medical field myself, it's a sacred field. It really is. Like, people entrust us with their lives and their well-being. When you are scamming people in that field, it's one of the very worst kinds of exploitation imaginable.
Oh yeah.
It's far worse than cheating on tests to get into the college you want.
Well,
Yeah. That's in the book too.
On a sidebar, because you are a paramedic, I can't thank all the paramedics out there enough. I mean, March 2nd, I needed a paramedic. I knew I needed a paramedic, so I called quickly. But if it wasn't for you guys being on the front line right then and there, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And you guys don't get enough credit. But I've seen things in hospitals and doctors and the influence of pharma in decision making. Like, you have, I remember everybody had what's the psoriasis, whatever going on, right? So they're limited what to do, and everybody's pushing the biologic. And I'm like, no, I don't want to bleed through my eyelids. I don't want to have depression every once in a while, thoughts of suicide, or speak a foreign language. No, and that's all they do. And there's a whole list of people that are in the medical field, from doctors to nurses to whatever, and you will see it's by law. You have to see who compensates them.
Yeah, and when a physician gives a lecture, and I've attended many, they declare their financial interest. So if they're going to talk about an intervention, if they have a financial interest in it, they must declare it. One thing I did look at in the book is the opioid crisis, and how families like the Sacklers basically set out to deceive the healthcare industry into believing that the medication they were releasing was less addictive and safer than traditional opioids, when they knew, hands down, that it was very much the opposite. And this is a family that has their name on how many wings of art galleries and libraries and hospitals, and yet how much misery have they caused?
Individualize the dose was the term that they spread around.
Yeah. So
yeah, that was what I can't remember in the book. Did you cover by any chance the testing for C19
for COVID-19?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah,
I did not cover COVID-19 in this book at all.
Yeah, because that's one of the ones. Like, eventually, it's like the testing, because of how many were pushing everything to be either tested for this because of the money that was coming in. If you ran it for a test, or if it came back this, you got so much more money through the hospital, through all the funding. Eventually, I don't know if it'll ever achieve the level of it was an outright grift or scam, as it was just simply, other than just like for the American taxpayer, that we ended up just throwing a ton of money at institutions just because they were putting this stuff. They were just basically billing something that would have been a lesser charge.
In my native UK, there was a national scandal because the government paid with taxpayer money billions for a track and trace software system that did not work. And then you start following those threads as to who authorized it and so forth. I think that one of the common factors when someone is engaging in grift and corruption and fraud, they capitalize on greed, but they also capitalize on fear.
Yep.
Those are two conditions throughout history in which people have been able to take advantage of others en masse. So, whether it's a global pandemic, it's a time of opportunity for some people. We certainly see it in wartime. And the fact is, when has it not been wartime for us here in the US? I can't remember. So I put in Oliver North, in there. I put in Watergate, all this kind of stuff. And the same kind of exploitation of fear and greed just cycles again and again and again throughout our history, which is a little depressing if you think too much about it.
Oh yeah, you pretty much opened it up with Eisenhower.
Yeah,
in the military-industrial complex, and that's one of the things, because that's right there. That's quintessential. That is definitely something where there's so much corruption in there. 9/11 alone was a prime example about how much money was being thrown at. From that time on, you could see just how much money was being sent to military contractors. And we're talking, what, trillions in the last 20 years?
Well, yeah. I was going to ask you, Rich, you know, did you cover anything of 9/11 and specifically the Patriot Act?
I did not cover 9/11 and the Patriot Act in this book. And again, it came down to the fact that, number one, it almost is impossible to encapsulate that in a short chapter, right?
Yeah.
There were some chapters that were so complex, I could not do them justice in 5 pages, you know, or 7 pages. So that was one of them.
Totally understandable, but part of this, you know, and talking about 9/11 and talking about, you know, C-19 and whatever, I think we're still in a time frame where you really can't. You're risking a lot by going at that subject, and I think we have to wait a little bit longer before people can really tackle it freely without having the repercussions from whatever, you know, how it be.
They're immensely emotional subjects for us as well. I mean, we all have our opinions on them, right? We all have our opinions, and some of those opinions are controversial. The other thing I would say is this, that we live in such a distrustful, hateful time right now in the US. I did not want to stoke those fires unnecessarily.
Okay. That's what I figured.
Yeah.
It's like you're talking about you know, it's like the chapter on Hoover, you know, that was 10 pages, you know, so that was a long one, because obviously how are you going to summarize J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI, you know, with everything that he was involved in? That's not, I mean, just Kissinger alone would be, you know, 40 pages, you know, in a book like this. I mean, so it's just...
My wife is hooked on this new, I guess this is a plug for you, HBO. My wife is hooked on this new show, White House Plumbers, which she knew absolutely nothing about because she hadn't read my book either. And she's like hooked from episode 1. And she's like, you couldn't make this stuff up. I'm like, yeah, exactly. You know, it was so convoluted. It was so arcane. It's an incredible drama. And when you start digging into Nixon and stuff like that, Watergate, the origins of Vietnam, it is just so compelling, you know. And I think we're now at a point where that's less of an emotional hot button for most Americans than it was even just 10, 15 years ago, you know.
Well, that shows you just how almost like desensitized we are to a lot of stuff. Because some of the stuff like what's gone on this last year would have been national, you know, scandals that would have dominated everything, every aspect of everybody's life. And now we're just like, it's Monday.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's Monday. I'm like, we're just, you know, it doesn't matter whether it's a Trump news or Hunter Biden news or Biden. It doesn't matter what it is. That would be in the 1940s. Every newspaper would just be going berserk. Now we're just like,
well, I mean, I'll go you one better. We live, and I never thought even a year ago I would say something like this, but we now live in an age when we're holding congressional hearings into the potential that our skies are being invaded by whoever knows, right? Whether it's aliens, extraterrestrials, whatever they are. And we have this openly being discussed in hearings on the Hill, and the general response from the public has been, yeah, but what about Hunter's laptop?
Yeah.
And
the Maui fires, you know.
Yeah. We admit that, you know, we've captured stuff that is not of this planet. But where did the money come from? You know, for Biden, you're like, dude, they just finally, we've been trying to get them to say this since the 1940s, and they just admitted that they actually, you know, collected an extraterrestrial craft, and everybody's just like, eh.
It's almost staggering, you know, and part of you wonders, is this coming out now? Because, you know, there is so much overwhelming news, you know, overwhelmingly bad, incredible news that, as you said, just 10 years ago, any one of these stories would have dominated the headlines for weeks, if not months. And now they're gone in the blink of an eye, and we're on to the next thing.
Yeah. How bad is it how bad are we, honestly, just piggybacking on what you just said, how bad is it that just telling us that there are aliens and they're visiting us is a calming effect over whatever they guess? It's like, what are we going to do? We need to calm down. Just tell them there's aliens.
Well, thank goodness someone sane is coming, you know. So, but yeah, and that's it, right? but the worst thing about it, I think, is never. I came to the US as an immigrant in 1999. I have never seen Americans, and I count myself in that number because I'm a dual citizen. I've never seen Americans at one another's throats to this degree. It has never happened before. I mean, even during the Civil War, I think we were generally more civil than we are right now. It is horrifying, it's disturbing, and I don't like the way things are trending. So we live in dangerous times.
I don't want to take credit for this because somebody else posed this. They said, imagine what the Civil War would have been like if we had Twitter and Facebook.
Yeah, it's a brilliant observation.
Yeah, they're like, just imagine how bad it would have been if we would have been able to throw internet lobs at each other at the same time as they're doing the battles. I said, we probably would still be separated.
I think that's a very astute observation indeed.
And so, I wish I could attribute who that was. Like I just said, I don't take credit for that, observation, but it's like, I wish I could attribute it. So, so there's my little caveat. But hey, we got to get to our favorite people: Copeland, Olstein, Jimmy Swaggart, the TV, basically the epitome of the TV grift. It's who, in your opinion, Richard, say Brian, who would you guys attribute would be the first, modern religious grifter?
Depends how you define modern, right? Because not to throw that back on you, but there are those people that would define all religion as grift.
Yeah, because I was because you could go back to the Catholic Church, you could go to all this stuff. I'm more I guess I'd say the TV evangelists, the ones where they actually finally started having the broad reach to where the late night things where you could go on there and call this phone number. You've got
the Bakkers are in there, and they were certainly interesting. They've become more prominent, I know, since the movie came out with Andrew Garfield, and I forget who played Tammy Faye Bakker. I'm not sure. I apologize, but certainly the Bakkers were one great example of that. You have your Jimmy Swaggarts and so forth, Kenneth Copeland's. Weaponization of media broadcasting has always fascinated me. I mean, we've seen, again, harkening back to the book I just finished on World War II, the use of radio propaganda on all sides is a fascinating subject. And I think that there are great similarities with the propaganda used by, certain sides in the Second World War and the propaganda that would come from certain religious broadcasters. The difference is one was done for political reasons. The other was done to line the pockets of unscrupulous individuals. No, in my opinion, no preacher needs a private jet. In my opinion, no preacher needs a mansion. And if they think that they do, then they really have not read the book they preach from very carefully or closely.
Well, it's like Olstein, he's got this mega mansion, stuff like that. And when most people want to cook, it's no, that money came from the book. How did he write the book? The book came from the church. This was based off of his ministry in the church, and people that are in the church are buying this. This is literally Olstein took the Scientology idea and ran with it in the Christian realm, where you have a captive audience and you can sell your book and you make tons of money off of it. And it's you've washed the money.
To be clear, Craig, I'm not against prosperity or even the so-called gospel. What I am against is the idea that if you have a mega church in your city and you have even one single person homeless without somewhere to sleep at night, that's not your house. I'm an agnostic, but that's not your house. That's God's, right? You should be opening that up. And so it's been my experience that in those cases, the more Christian they proclaimed themselves to be, the less Christian their actual behavior is.
So with Joel Olstein, initially I like this guy because he's very clever. He does not use the word Jesus until the very end, if ever. So now he's just talking to you. He's taking your situations and he's doing it in a really weird, non-religious way. and it's reaching people in multiple different groups,
Mhm.
not just your Catholics or your Christians, and like, wow, that sounds right. And he has this nice thing about him. So that was his angle. That was his angle initially. And that was great. I'm like, wow, this guy can do it. And at the end, he just gave you a little prayer and that was it. Big smile and off your way. Right. Whereas some of the other people, like, you get the Jim Jones or the Waco, and they're just in your face and they're God and Jesus. Or the worst, in my opinion, is not Olstein, who has the huge, former arena that they used to play basketball in or whatever. It's the people that are the faith healers. When you're praying on someone's illness and they're desperate for something and you're pretending to cut them or pull some, wow.
Yep. They went in the book also.
Hell enough that's deep enough for you.
Mm-hmm. They went in the book also. And what I wish I'd put in, it didn't have the page count, unfortunately, along those same lines. I'd wanted to cover, and this will make a future book, I know it will, Houdini's crusade against fraudulent mediums.
Oh, yeah.
The idea of preying on the bereaved, because I looked at people that bilked their marks out of their life savings. With hindsight, I always look at a book after it's out, and I'm number one, I'm relieved that it's out there and people are liking it, but I always see its imperfections. And so, here's what I also wish I'd put in. And looking at those who prey financially on those who are suffering emotionally is something that I will probably write about in future, almost certainly.
That'd be great.
Because they are parasites in every form. But the golden principle should always be follow the money. Who benefits? Who benefits? Follow the money. And as someone who does paranormal investigation and writes about that in other books, one of the first things I look at when there are claims of a haunted house or whatever is, and are you selling tickets? Is there money changing hands? Do you want publicity or fame? And again, when we look at some of these individuals that start these organizations, there are cults of personality. Jim Jones, a pathologic personality that had a messiah complex. Then there are those that are doing it purely for the financial benefits, and some that kind of blur those lines.
I was going to say this initially, and the title of this is Grifters, Frauds, and Crooks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and True Stories of American Corruption. But I was going to say this very well could be said for the paranormal.
Certainly, absolutely,
and there are a ton of them. There are a ton of them. I do believe that if you're gifted enough and have foresight and you're using it, and you're taking some time away for whatever you need to do, whatever to help somebody, there's a certain point where if someone wants to compensate you, yes.
Yeah.
I think it's, and if you have abilities, you should be making something off of it. But there are too many people scamming people. And I've been doing the paranormal thing on the side for a long time. And anytime I get up to a psychic or a medium, I just sit there and I test them because I have my own little gifts and abilities. And you have to tell me something there's no way in hell you can tell me.
Right. And that's happened to me with a handful of people in a 25 year
exactly.
Period.
Like
they do exist. There are enough to make it statistically significant, but the majority are not that impressive. And I think the majority, even on grifters, they mean well, but there are many who are self-delusional and want to feel special,
Would you put the psychics into that grifting?
Well, I put Miss Cleo into this book.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, she's the one we all remember. When I first came to the US exactly. When I first came to the US in 1999, there we are, the Miss Cleo tarot deck. I've got one too.
I saw that, $8 on eBay, and I was like, "Oh hell yeah, I've got to have the Miss Cleo deck." It doesn't matter.
About her, Craig, is I remember very clearly the Miss Cleo commercials, and I kind of have a nostalgic soft spot a quarter century later, and a lot of us do in America, right? There has been that documentary which came out, which paints her as something of a victim, that she, did not make the millions that the individuals running her business did. But on the other hand, you are knowingly selling false hope. You are knowingly the face of an organization which preys upon the vulnerable and needy, and sometimes bankrupts them. So it's very, very complex.
Yeah.
The vast, you say Miss Cleo to most Americans, though, they'll smile and laugh and go like, "Oh yeah," like a little bit fondly, not thinking about the very real damage that was done. Because
because you realize it, just especially like with her, it wasn't so much like what she was saying. They got people because it was one of those, you got to hold on while you're waiting for this, because I really want to solve my love life. So they string you along for minutes while you're getting charged by the minute, and so your bill just gets racked up. And it's kind of and you tie that like what we were just doing with the faith healers. You're doing the same thing. They're basically hooking you that through this money that goes here, we're going to be able to get all these people to pray for you. And by this, we're going to be able to pray, and we're going to be able to help solve this problem for you. But all we need you to do right now is we need you to write that check, send this credit card. You got to send this right to us right now, so that way we can get our team of prayer warriors on you right now, so we can help you out.
Yeah, I think that whenever, as a rule of thumb, is a good rule to live by, anyone who prays, and I mean PREY, anyone who is a vulture and preys upon someone who is weaker or vulnerable, those deserve a place in a book on frauds and grifters and crooks.
100%.
Whether they're getting paid or not.
I moved from New York down to Florida, and Florida happens to be a state where there are a plethora of psychics. But from what I understand, you have to register in order to practice in the state publicly.
I wonder if that was as a consequence of the Miss Cleo thing. I'm not sure. In the UK, where I come from, we had a fraudulent mediums act. And that was kind of interesting. Paranormal shows in Britain to this day, most of them have the disclaimer, this is for entertainment purposes only.
Yeah.
Which is interesting again, right? But follow the money. I keep coming back to that. Who benefits? Who benefits? Who benefits? Follow the money. Who gains and why?
That's a perfect way to Grifters, Frauds, and Crooks by Richard Estep. I said appreciate it, man. I said fantastic book, everybody. You can go to let me put it up here on the screen for you too, so that way everybody can see where to go to Amazon. And then you can also richardestep.net too. I'm going to put that up on the.
I always say this: is there a way to get? Because I like autograph copies. I have a lot of friends that are authors and interviews. Is there a way to get an autograph copy for if you're one of those fans?
Yep, there is. So if you follow me on my social media, usually every 2 months, certainly every 10 weeks, I will do an autograph mailing sale where I have a new book coming out, and I will offer mailed autograph copies of that and any of my books, bundle them, send them out media mail, so we keep costs as low as we can. So about 5 times a year, you can sign up for my mailing list if you want, or if you would rather not have extra email coming your way, I totally get that. You can just watch my socials, and you'll see plenty of opportunities to get signed books.
It's great.
Yeah, I'm scrolling through your people. It's the Stephen King, paranormal right here. This guy, like I said, he's prolific. Like I said,
light reading, everybody, light reading.
Yes. No, some of these are
before they go to bed.
Some of these stories, like I said, just I recommend like your book on the Fox Hollow Farm. Excellent.
Thank you.
People need to it's like the one in Gacy. People need to read these. I said you've done some amazing research on these. The serial killers next door. I have that one. Serial killers. I just showed that on the screen. I've got that one.
I'm swimming with a serial killer.
Yeah. There's a lot. Like I said, it's one. Two. It's just like people probably, if they not sure, I'm sure they've seen the Paranormal 911, Haunted Case Files, the Haunted Hospitals. These you can see them on the screen. That's one of those things too. It's like you look back, you can see them on a couple shows. We even talked about it on the last one you were on with us too. Just some of those haunted hospital stories are just fantastic. Those are cool reads.
Thank you so much. I have a book coming out January 2 with Visible Ink, and that is a 3rd true crime book from them. So hopefully we can set it up. I can come on back and we can talk about some other unsavory individuals.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Hey, don't threaten me with a good time.
Maybe we'll have to take Craig into one of those haunted hospitals, because if you think reading it's good. Go good.
I see. I'm one of those ones. I'm not the like the Ghost Adventures type thing. I'm not the Aaron that's going to go running screaming out of the building. I'm going to be the one where I'm going to hear the noise and I'm going to be like, "Ooh, what was that?" And I'm going to go towards it.
Well, that's the idea, and I've never understood anybody that doesn't.
Make a sound. Oh my God! And then run away. It's like you just asked it to do something for you. What are you freaking out about?
Well, and entertainment, I think, and actual research are two very different beasts.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just it's one of those things. It's like if I'm walking down a hallway and a door just opens, I'm not freaked out. I'm like, in my mind, I'm already going through scientifically. I'm like, okay, where's the draft? Is there a wind draft? I'm doing all this stuff trying to figure out what it couldn't be first before I'm thinking it's some 1800s ghost that just opened the door. I'm like, and then once I get to that point, I'm like, now the little skin starts, crawling, because I'm like, okay, this is pretty cool. I've weeded out all these things that it can't be. I'm like, okay, this is pretty freaking awesome. Do it again. Do it again.
My absolute favorite paranormal investigative tool costs $1. It's a dollar bill, and I've ruled out more drafts with that $1 bill by holding it and looking for airflow than any $200 piece of equipment that you might buy. You just need a willingness to have an open mind, be skeptical, and think critically.
Yeah, because I've always said, if you can rule out all that stuff first, that's what makes some of these instances so cool. Is because there's not an explanation for it, and that's the ones that are awesome.
Conan Doyle. Well, Sherlock Holmes by way of Conan Doyle. Once you eliminate the possible, whatever remains must be the truth.
Yes.
Exactly. Perfect. Well, thank you, sir. Again, appreciate it. I'm looking forward to the next book. Like I said, everybody, Amazon, you go right here. You said I just showed it up on his thing. You can click on it and you get it right from, and I'll put it back up on the screen so everybody see, because you can get the thing right from his website as well.
You can get signed copies from me. You can get copies from any retail bookstore, Barnes & Noble, or whoever you care to name. And I very much appreciate all of you that joined us on the Three Beards podcast tonight, and I hope to see you soon.
All right. Well, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Have a great night.
And all of you as well. Thank you.
All right. So definitely everybody go pick up that book, along with the other ones like I showed up there, because they are excellent reads, like I said. So yeah, that was one, man. We talked about a few people tonight. That's, I don't know. I've always just had this spot in for me about, especially like the religious aspect of it. Those ones are just, I don't know. I think it came from that when I really started questioning, basically like what he was saying, when I became Gnostic myself. I went from being real religious to where I became more on the spiritual side. But what I did is I really started questioning a lot of the stuff that was there, because it was just, I don't know. There were too many things like that just didn't make sense. Like when you're supposed to give of yourself and help those around, just like what Richard was saying. But then you have all these people where the only thing they care about is whether or not they got the gold Rolex, they got the Armani suits on, they've got all this stuff, and you realize this isn't about the ministry anymore. This is about themselves. That's the part, is like I said, and that I really started peeling that onion.
Is it a ministry or is it a Messiah? That's that you become.
Yeah,
and a fake Messiah in the process. Because I mean, what was very interesting is, I'm going to use Indiana Jones in the Last Crusade, when they go for the cup of Christ, and they pick out the gold. That's the cup of whatever.
Yeah, this is definitely the chalice of a king. It's all jewel encrusted,
like, and a piece of Play-Doh, and it's like, that's the one. It's when you free yourself, and your life will get so much better when you realize, pardon the expression, fuck the Joneses. You don't have to keep up with them. You don't have to have the best of the best. You have to have food, water, shelter, some laughter with your family, and you don't need would it be nice to have the Rolex? I actually have one, but I wouldn't wear it. It's a piece of crap, but that's a different story. But there are other watches that look really, really nice, but they aren't as expensive. And, You don't need the gold Rolex. You don't need the Breitling. You don't need the Petit Philippe. You don't need a Lamborghini. One of the if I had the money, right? If I had the money to purchase, my favorite car in the world is the Lamborghini. I don't care which one it is. Lamborghini. Do I purchase a Lamborghini for $400,000, or do I just get like a Genesis and then donate the rest of it to people that are starving? That's where my dilemma is.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of a cowboy church? Basically, it's not really like, a church just solely for cowboys. No, what it is they're basically, it's like almost like a pop-up church. Like
Steve Martin did a movie on that, actually.
Yeah, it's kind of in what it was.
That's how Joe Osteen started.
Yeah, and this. So what this is? Yeah, we're out at elk hunting, and one of this guy that he came out there, he was kind of a friend of a friend, and he was talking about, he was setting up a church out there. It was going to be a cowboy church. He was doing all this stuff, and I called him out on it because he's like, okay, you're doing a cowboy church. I'm like, that's awesome. I go, hey, no problem. And he's talking about, well, we're raising money because we got to have this we have to have this building with all this stuff. I'm like, I said, stop right there. Why do you have to have this building? He goes, well, nobody's going to take us seriously as a church unless we have these things. I'm like, no. Your priorities are already wrong. I go, you're after the things. You're after materialistic stuff right now. I go, this isn't about the ministry. If you truly believe what's in this book, nowhere in there is there a decree that God, Jesus decree, that the only way you can minister to people is if you have the palatial church, if you have all this infrastructure. It doesn't say that. Yeah, it literally, the directive was go out and minister to the people. That's it.
I had this conversation that it's when you talk to God, no matter who your God is, Jesus, Allah, Hashem, Buddha, whatever it is, Dalla, you don't need to be in a physical structure anywhere to talk to God. God is everywhere. You don't need to be in a physical structure to minister and help people, because God's everywhere. And I totally hear what you're saying, but one of the things is, if you are into the religious thing and helping people, the more of this you have, the more help you can administer. And some people get to a certain point where they're doing that and they're like, I need a new car. The truck broke down. And then the greed gets in. Mm-hmm. The sins start coming in, right? I have sinned, Greg.
Oh yeah, that's exactly it. And that's, people are talking about, it's like, well, we need to administer the poor. And that's kind of the point. You like the TBN network, right? The Crystal Palace. You look at all this stuff. Look at all the money that's spent on buildings, land, property, all this infrastructure. How many soup kitchens would that have built in an inner city? That's the thing. It's like, instead of focusing, that was my message to that guy. I said my message, like I was sent from God to talk to him about this. That's what I was trying to express to him. It's like, the building is not the point. The point is, if you want to minister to people, that's the term, preaching to the choir.
Right.
You and me are already in the church. We're there because we want to be there. We're doing all this stuff. So as a minister, what are you doing? You've already by all definition, you've already saved the soul, because they're there in church, they're believing in this stuff. The point is to go after the ones that aren't hearing the message. And you're not doing that within these four walls. You need to go out as a group, instead of meeting at some palatial building with the latest screens and the fancy sound system, so you can have all the music and sing along. You got the television camera filming the whole service so people online can watch. All of that could be spent if everybody got together that Sunday and went out and actually did like a food drive, did something, handed out food, cooked for people. That would be thousands of times better than meeting every Sunday just so you could sing along, sway back and forth, holy roll.
Roll. Dance with serpents. Starts
Yeah.
speaking in tongues.
Shake
And drink arsenic.
crazy jazz hands.
That's just like yeah. You know. Out, demon out. But
Yeah.
you know, one of the biggest culprits is not these little, you know, not necessarily these little guys. Look to the big V. They have unbelievable wealth, and yet everyone around them is starving.
Mhm.
And I've always said, I said this to numerous people because I've seen some of the born agains, and I've seen some of the people that go real religious and they find God or whatever. They're preaching to you and pointing their fingers, right? What are you gonna do when Jesus comes back, right? And I said, you guys better be very careful, because when Jesus was here, he may have died for your sins the first time. When that man comes back, he's gonna kick the shit out of everybody. He's gonna be pissed because you didn't learn your lesson. And that's my 2 cents of it. But
Yeah.
I won't be making any money. And you know, I was starting the Church of Brian, but you know, tax deductions.
Yeah. Well, you know, the Church of Beardoism, you know, when we do that, it'll be free beard oil for all.
Church of Craig, which is cock.
I've been meaning to put that down there, you know, the high priest of Beardoism, you know, under my thing. Yeah, it's, like I said, but that's what, you know,
Blessings be.
Laura put that here, and that she summed up really, really well. That's kind of what I was getting at, is these guys, I just, you know, not every, I said, when I say these things, I don't say everybody that's in church is bad. That's not what I'm getting at. I just, like what I talked to that guy that was setting up this cowboy church, is I said, you have to really take a step back and look at your priorities. Because one of those things, if you're going there, like most people, if you're going to church, you're wearing the fancy clothes, you're basically going, it's all about your appearance. You're basically putting yourself on show. Yeah, the Church of Beard. Yeah, and that's for me, that's the problem, is because I'm agnostic. Like I said, I'm not really a steadfast follower of Christianity anymore. I'm kind of just across the board now. But through the seminary school and through the stuff I hear, as I said, the tenet is for you to give of yourself, minister to those that are in need. And we aren't doing that by buying the latest suits, throwing money in the plate, so that way we can landscape the front of the building and make it look all nice. I go, the point of it all is for the ministry, it really needs to be that thing where people go out and bearded monks. That's right.
Yeah, I just saw that.
I've already got the monk, you know, sort of the monk hairstyle. Yeah, it's well, I'll get off my little soapbox here. I'll get on the joking side. I've already talked about, like, I say I'm working. I am. It's just I have trouble just finding time to sit down and write. But I've jokingly, I want to come up with a whole tenets, like the proper way of cutting the beard and how you were to properly dispose of the beard hair. You can't just throw it away, because it is a sacred object that must be treated. It must be burned in the holy sacrament fire. It can't just be disposed of in any garbage can. I'll come up with all the stuff. It'll be funny. But that's the thing. It just, if you could take one thing away from my little soapbox, is that quit striving to be having your butt in a chair on Sunday, because guess what? God doesn't take attendance.
No. And you can't bring this with you when you get up there. Yeah. There's nothing.
And so I would rather see people instead of throwing bringing their tithe money or whatever, I would rather see you guys go to your local grocery store, your Aldi's, Publix, Safeway, Albertsons, wherever it is, and just go buy a cartload of food, take it to your local food bank, or go take it to your soup kitchen. Go take it somewhere where it's needed. Don't buy crappy lima beans. Okay, that's just, nobody's gonna eat that crap. All right, quit wasting your money, on that stuff. I just don't buy the stuff. Don't buy that stuff. Just take like the basic staples, potatoes. Take all this stuff right here, make it to where people can make meals, and take it to these soup kitchens, to these homeless shelters. Take this stuff to where they can actually, there's actually some of these groups, like Salvation Army is one, where they'll have like some homeless shelters. Take it here to where you can volunteer your time. making these meals. And that's for me. I think that would be a work that would be so much more fitting of a true Christian than what making sure that you show your appearance on a Wednesday night or Sunday morning in a church.
And you're picking out Christianity, but it doesn't matter what religion it is.
No, it's
because God, when you leave here, depending on who what you've done, if who you murdered or killed or whatever, and you get to that point where you're up in heaven or on the express to hell, you're gonna know who the God is, who the real God is, and you're gonna I bet on the wrong horse on this one. Son of a bitch. And then you're gonna, because God doesn't care. But I believe God comes in many forms, and that's how God is approached to everybody, But I'll tell you what, we've done this. We've helped. We had these food local refrigerator or local fridge, community fridge, I think they're called. And you just anything extra, we just give to the community fridge. People come by, they take what they need because they need it. My daughters and I have all made sandwiches, like lots of sandwiches for people, and find a place that will do that and delivers the food. If you really want to do something for Thanksgiving, which is kind of coming up, and for Christmas and anything, take one day out of a month, and it would be a half a day. Go to one of these places, make sandwiches for people, pack them up, put them in a bag, and then give back to, if you can.
Yeah, that's
great. You really will feel great.
No, Laura basically just heard. He just missed me on my little soapbox. I kind of was going based off of just where.
Yeah.
And let's see. And before I miss one here, let's see. Chris is like, speaking beards. Craig, what was the name of the beard oil company who was talking about a month or so ago? That was right here, the Bigfoot Refinery. Let me see that.
So.
Bigfoot Refinery beard.
Scan it in and put it in as a picture so you can pop it in.
Yeah, well,
keep it in the back end.
I would, especially if they were to be a sponsor of said program. Like, I would go through all this stuff. For right now, they just get a simple. Yeah. The only person that gets the clear image, which I'm working on, is that guy.
Is that Ert Radio?
Yes, is that Ert Radio dude. Ron Tillet Bar. Dude, you just got to go like sign up and do your account, like whatever, man. Yeah. Yeah, you got to make sure Mixler.com. Do it for us. If you're not going to do it for yourself, do it for us. Just go. It's going to take you like a minute and a half.
I mean, seriously, go there. You put your name in, an email address, and
he's got some cute, cool. He plays music. He stuff.
Over 100,000. Over 100,000. I don't even know if Ron's still here.
Yep.
Ron may be doing a reading right now.
But
I've done readings for people. I've done them for free. I've done them for compensation. Only recently for compensation. I'm always willing to help, but there's so many scammers out there. You just got to watch your butt. How many subscribers? Over 100 and what?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure how many subscribers he has. I know it's over 100,000 listens. A couple weeks ago.
Listens. That's a lot of listens. 100,000 listens is huge.
Oh yeah,
that's a lot of people coming out there. So. If you want to advertise also, you can advertise on Ert Radio.
There we go. He's at 101,365. So that's the total listens. So that's.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, it's excellent beard oil, by the way. I really do like it. And so I said I would actually love to have them as as another sponsor of the program too. Like I said, because it was just. We've been looking for somebody like for beard oil and stuff like that because it kind of goes with the whole thing.
Yeah.
So we're looking for definitely somebody like that. If there's somebody else out there, I'm willing to try a product. I said like I said, if you guys know of somebody, if you know of somebody who'd like to have 3 media horrors, hawking their product, bring them our way. Like I said, we will definitely do that. So it's Mixler.com. Please go make your account, support the guy. So for those listening and for those watching, Ron, he's proud sponsor of the show. Is really like having him there, and so hopefully I'll get that promo done. So
I already got Nana saying she wants to trade for a reading.
Yep.
No problem. I'll give you. Don't worry about it. But Teddy's on a cruise, right?
Yep, Teddy Bear's he's on a Carnival cruise. I haven't heard any reports of somebody falling off a cruise ship yet, so he's apparently safe.
If they are, that's the cruise ship. I mean,
but that cruise ship's the one where you end up getting in chair battles where somebody.
Yeah. It shouldn't even be called Carnival Cruise. It should probably be called Herpy Cruise, but
allegedly, we don't want any cease and desist from Carnival.
Allegedly,
yes. Right. And so, is for anybody that's listening, it's I'm like, show a hand. Who doesn't know the story behind that? And like I said, I would be more than happy to tell you like how he got his nickname. Because you don't. We're still looking for a nickname for Brian. I haven't got one yet.
Teddy Bear. I can be 30 from
yeah. Yeah, it's one of Brian's shirts.
Yes, that is one of my shirts.
Yes, it was one of his there. So I've been meaning to wear one of those for a while. So it's I've got the Vitruvian Man's actually one of my favorite ones.
Yeah, it's a pretty damn good one. And I have a Bigfoot a Dogman been working on an Alien, the same thing. And the history around the Vitruvian Man or the Vitruvian Bigfoot is all about Bigfoot. So if you start reading it, you'll start seeing stuff,
Yeah, it's not just random characters that you actually read the whole thing. It's pretty.
Yeah.
It gets a little creepy when somebody's sitting there trying to read it and they basically got your nose almost on your chest.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, whoa. How about we back it off a little bit, man?
Maybe if I do I do it again at the bottom. If you can read this, I'm peeing on your leg.
Yeah, if you can if you're reading this, we are now dating.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've been close so long. We are pretty much an item now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you want me to call you honey or baby? I mean, how does it work?
I said I really felt like we should have gone out to got something to eat first, but hey,
exactly.
What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do?
My proctologist. We get something to eat first before we go through this whole process.
It's gonna be a slight pinch, and then you realize both of his hands were on your shoulders.
It's great. Exactly. That's insane. There's a great video of Peter Griffin getting it.
Yeah. Like, oh yeah. Yeah, where all of a sudden he's like he's been vielated, and he's just like it's hysterical.
That is not a good experience.
No, I think it's like if you weren't expecting it, yeah. But if you know it has to happen, it's not as
They call it the striker, Craig. We're going into overdrive.
That's right.
That's being very prideful, Richard.
Yes, but no, everybody, like I said, appreciate you guys watching. Like I said, please go support. Richard Eastup's got some books that everybody's gonna love. I mean, if you're into serial killers, definitely check out his stuff because that book on Gacy, there's ones just across the board. The serial killer ones are kind of the same style like this, where it's all about different serial killers. It gives all the details on them. Yeah, the final line should be "Don't stop now, keep going."
Either that or
there's more on the other side.
Yeah, you spit or swallow.
Yeah. That's in the backwards font.
Exactly. I actually have a shirt that says "If you're when life gives you lemons," and at the bottom it says "Throw them at people." My wife, where I also have "Happy if you know it." If you're happy and you know it, shut the fuck up. That's my wife's like, "Why are you so mean?" I'm like, "They're great shirts."
Yes, people get it. People get it. But like I said, there's one no. If anybody doesn't know the story, just let me know. We'll repeat it sometime about why he's called Teddy Bear. Like I said, we're still looking for a nickname for Brian. We haven't got one yet.
For me.
Mm-hmm. I still haven't come up with one. Yeah,
I don't know.
You can't nickname yourself. That's why I said it's like I even hate putting it on there because I feel like I'm still self-glossing. The guys called me the beard of knowledge. I still feel like I'm hubris, if I ever put that up there. I mean, I don't.
Beard of knowledge.
The beard of knowledge. But yeah, I said you never can nickname yourself. That is not a good thing.
You can call me the jokester because that's basically what I do. But
well, We'll figure it out. It's
I
something's
can't
gonna
name
happen.
myself, but I always like you go someplace and they're like whipped cream. I'm like, no, that was my rap name. Put some sprinkles on it instead. I always get them. The best was, this is great. I have my oldest daughter. I picked her up and her boyfriend from the high school, and I went to Racetrack. Racetrack down here is the gas station with 24. That's like a 7-Eleven or whatever else you used to run in a convenience store. So I paid for my stuff because I didn't want to wait for them because it's their boyfriend and girlfriend. They take fucking forever. And I'm standing next to the counter and I go, yeah, and their stuff. He goes, are you paying for them, man? I'm like, yeah, that's what happens when you don't use a condom. And he just lost it. And my daughter's like, oh my God. And her boyfriend was cracking up. So yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah, that is good.
Yeah.
Oh man, so I was trying to find a clip here. Is kind of going back to the thing, but everyone's like long. Remember from anger management, we were talking about Buddhism, and I was like, I was wanting to find that clip where it says, how does somebody that weighs weighs all that preaches self-control, and the monk loses it.
I'm a people person. I deal with booking people. That's from Office Space. But kind of same principle there.
Mm-hmm.
I have a great idea for the show, and I since we have some people listening in, this is why I have an idea, because I do it all the time. You come up with a line, you say something that's true, and then each of us will just carry it, and just like we did this afternoon with Mark.
Yep. And
we just take it and run.
Just take it. Yeah, be prepared. Like I said, it'll be like those people that say, "Hey, roast me." And you're like, "Are you sure you want this?"
No, I think it would be great. I mean, like there was one time I got invited to a friend's house for a party, and I just forgot about it and never went. He's like, "Dude, we missed you last night." I'm like, and then I went into this whole thing. Well, we were on the way there, and then there was this light in the sky. I went into this whole UFO abduction shit details. I got a headache, and there's a bump in my. And I'm like, we don't know what to do or who to talk to. And he's like, dude, are you okay? And I'm like, and for like a week, I let him stew with it. I said, Mark, I fucked up. I missed the date. What about the UFO? I'm like, it's not real. I just made it up.
I made it up. Yeah. All right, guys. So can't guarantee we're gonna have a show next week unless Chris and Brian want to do one. I'm gonna be flying back from Oregon at that point. So
that's what he thinks.
So I'm going to go visit family. It's been almost 6 years since I've been back there, so I need to go see everybody. So I'll be flying back on there. So we're supposed to be back here around 7:00 our time here on that Wednesday, but I can't guarantee I'll be here in time. So if I pop in, if I do something live, it might just be a pop in like, hey, I made it, I'm alive. But I don't know if Brian. I'll let you guys know if Brian and Chris decide they want to do a show or do something like that. We'll figure that out. But right now, that might be an off week. It might be a replay, but we'll see.
Maybe Teddy can invite some of the bearded guys that he likes to hang out with to come in.
Okay, I'll tell the story real quick. All right, since he brought it up. Okay, the reason why he's called Teddy Bear is he's so desperate to get it, kind of help grow our numbers that he joins all these beard groups. He just sees beards and he just joins it. So this was, we were pretty much, I think it was like a year and a half into it. And all of a sudden I see this group and I'm like, what is it? And I find out he's joined some beards, bears, and, bikes group because he's into bikes. And I'm looking at it. I'm like, Chris, do you know what a teddy bear is called? He's like, no. I go, it's a big, hairy gay man. That's the term, is a teddy bear. And so I go, what you joined a group that's into big, hairy men, looking for big, hairy men that like beards and bikes. And he's like, oh my God. So we did, the group. So about a year, year and a half, 2 years goes by, we're here pretty modern here. Brian's now part of the show. And all of a sudden I see this beards, bears, and bellies of color. I'm like, wait a minute. And here it is. It's a bunch of guys that are wearing S&M leather bondage stuff. He said, I'm like, Chris did it again. I'm like, Chris, you've got to look before you join these groups. And Brian mentioned, I'm like, yeah, no, that's his nickname. His nickname is now Teddy Bear.
Teddy. He's Teddy Bear.
Yeah, I go, yep, he's Teddy Bear. So that's where that came about. So
Craig and I on a different schedule, and instead of being into men, we like beaver twists. And
Bucky's. Oh, come on, we got to get one close.
If you want to,
we got to get one closer. There's gonna be one close, possibly close to you.
There is, and
St. Port Lucie.
If it's close enough, what they're paying for management, like $275,000 a year. Hey kids, I'll go play with Bucky's nuts at that point.
No, okay. Well, a lot of people don't. Like I said, if you've looked at these, like we're over here, the guys that are the guys, just any individuals that are going around just cleaning the lot are making $15-16 an hour. And those are the guys who are just going around doing litter pickup and changing can liners.
Yep.
Cashiers are making between 18 and 20 bucks an hour to start, just as a cashier. And so assistant managers, the management team, you're 60,000 plus a year as a salary.
Oh yeah.
Going for, team lead into management. And so, yeah, that's why we've talked about this. It's right now. I've had a few people like, this is where you should do like the paywall. No, I don't like that. This is
paywall.
Yeah, I'm like, no. I go, I like this just kind of wind down, just BS part, and that's why I said this is why people come to listen to us. It's for this, so they can listen to me smack a pin against a pad of paper many times.
See, you didn't prepare because you should have put something at the bottom like a dancing Jesus. Da, 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 da.
What? So I could get more. So I could get more shit from from people. After my Last Supper photo.
Oh my god! I did a Last Supper with my dog as Jesus, and oh my god, I've never. So many people.
Oh, there's people that they're like, oh my god, we're boycotting. I'm like. I go, okay, one, I know you're not a fan of the show because the Antichrist photo alone would have shot you over the moon. You shouldn't still be here.
Yeah.
So the Last Supper picture shouldn't, maybe that was the final. I don't know. But if that's what was getting you, you have not been paying attention because I'm
$8 an hour. Yeah. But it's, you can't compare it when all of us are growing up to what they do now. You
Bucky's
can be paid $60 an hour. It's still not enough because the expenses are just so high.
Yeah, Bucky's is it's a life changer for people, like job wise. I mean, because it's just when everybody else around you is paying like $12 or $13 an hour, and you can go start at Bucky's and making $5 more an hour. It's like, why not go work there?
And let me tell you, the food alone at Bucky's is really good. The brisket, the turkey,
the sausage on a
stick. I mean, it's just the apple pie thing. Oh my god, that was so good.
Who doesn't like a good beaver twist?
Yeah, I like a bit. Good beaver twist is. I don't think we're talking about
double entendre there. Ooh,
I mean, I could eat a ton of beaver twist.
There's your big word for the day, everybody. Double entendre.
Double entendre.
There you go. Yeah, no, it's. But yeah, this is. Watch the show for the information. Stay to the end for the BS. That's pretty much what we roll. That's what we roll here. So, all right, everybody. Appreciate you guys watching. Thank you so much. I said, just imagine the dancing Jesus. If that is like Ryan said, I don't have that. Yeah. So
we got to figure that one.
Yeah, we got to get our got to get our blasphemy in on a weekly basis, right?
I have a personal relationship with God, and Jesus.
Yeah,
I think they're two separate and distinct, but whatever.
Oh, I can't remember where I copied it, but I have one. It's like I found Jesus. He was behind the couch the whole time, and it shows a picture of Jesus behind the couch.
Okay, so one of my friends is a priest now. He became a priest. A mutual friend of ours gave him a gift for his new apartment. It's Jesus on the cross, and he's attached to a bungee cord.
Oh yes, I see that, and it's called Bungee Jesus.
Yeah,
and I got Jesus.
That is hysterical. That is,
dude. Oh, I've got someone, like I said,
I'm
pictures.
going
It's like,
my Jesus joke right now.
like somebody put Easter cookies and it's a hand and it has the red in the center and they're like nailed it. And I'm like, oh, I've got a few like what these guys did. It's an old meme. They went to an art gallery and there's Jesus on the cross and the other guys are doing the MCA.
We're going to hell,
And
Chris.
it's like going to hell. That was for the meme. Oh God,
There was
all
a
fun,
great
people. It's all fun.
There was a great comedian that did that whole joke. Jesus comes back. Really? This is your symbol for me?
Yeah. What part of this makes you think I like this? And this is what
Yeah.
Yeah. Jim Gaffigan has a great routine about religion. It's like, I'm the son of God. Right now we're building the shed, so hop to it, Jesus. Yeah. There's
See. We're gonna get in trouble.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Get me going on. Like I said, it's one of those. I'm all about the humor. It's like people are like, this is gonna happen. I'm like, I haven't been struck by lightning yet, so it must be okay.
We went to Home Depot today and we went out to the gardening section, right? And it's hotter than the sun down here. I mean, all of a sudden it just gets humid. And I think they use an asthmatic air conditioner in Home Depot. It's just like whatever it is. So we go out and they have that big orange fan, which is about 7 feet in diameter.
Yep.
And
my your eyeballs back.
Yeah, my wife's looking for soil for whatever, succulent plants. They stand on it just to be a pain in the ass. Look, honey, I'm flying. Just joking around. Some guy comes to the store. He's cracking up at this point. He's just like, that's the best thing I've seen all day. And I said, if you can't laugh and there's so much crap in this world, find a moment to laugh.
Yes.
And my wife was like, you are not normal. And I'm like, am I not normal? Or the person that married me not normal?
Yeah. Oh, I was joking. She just shakes her head. I'm like, remember, you said yes.
Yeah.
Whatever you did, you accepted it. So, she usually reports it's like it was a weak moment, but I'm like, hey, 28 years later, boom.
Yep. I told my wife the other day when the kids did something stupid, I said, I told you the dog was better.
That's fantastic.
Like, up.
All right, everybody. We'll see you later. Good night.
Good night. Blessings be.